What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for another episode of Player Ratings as Spurs beat Fulham 1-0 at Craven Cottage last night, which was a definite win on and off the pitch, with the fans in the stands being absolutely incredible last night. We've got Brains with us today to take you through the player ratings, and let's start off with Hugo Lloris. Brains gives a 6, I gave a 7. And look, I think he made some really important saves in the first half. There were 3 notable saves in there, albeit one of them or 2 of them did get spilled and we didn't get punished for them, but he was there to make the save, so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, seeing as we did keep a clean sheet and there was a big save in the latter stages with Manor Solomon, albeit it was probably going wide. But I thought it was much better from Hugo as opposed to previous weeks.
Yeah, maybe I've been a little bit harsh on him. I feel like he got a little bit fortunate, but and in that being fortunate, I felt like he hung on for dear life to some of them. And one of them, I thought the ball was going wide, and he made a save, and it was like, okay, he needs these stats.
Definitely.
But at the end of the day, he gets a clean sheet, so I was impressed. I was impressed that just someone in that bad run of form can get a clean sheet. So fair enough. But yeah, I gave him 6 because I feel like 7 is that something great's happened.
The thing is, it depends how you judge your players and how you judge the ratings. I mean, I would say like that's an 8 when you do like something really good in it.
Fair
you know
enough,
what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think 7 is just like a good display. Above average display. Anyway, let's move on to Cuti Romero. Brains gives him a 6. I gave him a 7. Really dodgy in the opening stages from Cuti. Really dodgy. And I thought, oh God, are we going to have one of these Cuti Romero displays? But I felt like he grew into the game, became his aggressive self, a really big battle he had on his hands with Mitrovic, where I felt he came out on top. And, the Samba skills were coming out, or the South American skills were coming out. He did a nutmeg close to us with the away fans. And I thought he was growing in the game as the game wore on, and I thought it was a key part to why we kept a clean sheet in the end.
Yeah, and I gave him that 6 because at the start I would have given him a 4 if he continued the way he was going, because he just looked so out of it, just 3-4 mistakes in a row, and then he kind of got himself back, and then he kind of he handled the game. But I think the structure that we were in was really important into like them finding it hard to break down. So the space that Mitrovic ended up getting was very close, so I thought it was a good defensive. If you had to say the whole unit, I would give them like a 7. But I was just worried about him early. His rating went so down, and he got himself back up. Accomplished, and I definitely loved that little nutmeg taking people on. He's got that in his locker, so fair play to him.
And again, once we have a more competent defence, like we spoke about in the review show, like I feel like you'll see a lot more of that from Romero coming through as well. Yeah. But let's move on to his partner in Eric Dyer. Again, Brains gives him a 6. I gave him a 7. Might be a common theme you might be seeing throughout this player ratings. But look, I thought Dyer dealt with everything that came his way defensively pretty well. The only worrying thing for me for Dyer is his inability to make those 5-yard passes into the midfield. It's really frustrating, but I think on a defensive standpoint, I thought he performed well. Yeah,
as a defender, I think he did everything right. But I want this to be like the bare minimum is what
absolutely,
he should do. But I felt again that he was putting players under a bit of pressure by Hail Mary passes. But at least he didn't lose the ball like he can do. And I just hated when he was putting the ball behind Romero when he'd go that side, or he'd putting the ball behind Ben Davies so he has to run back. It's like, let's move forward. So, but still, for me, he did everything he had to do, and that's why, for me, he's got the kind of the bare, you've had an all right game.
It's like when these players don't make a total calamity. You're like, all right, you had a good performance today. That's what it's come to with these Spurs defenders at the moment.
For me, giving Dyer a 6 is like giving him an 8.
Yeah, literally. Let's move on to Ben Davies. Brains gives him a 6. I gave him a 7. Again, I thought all 3 of them defended really well in the unit together.
They get a 7 for me. But.
Yeah. I mean, that's maybe kind of why I've put them in the 7, because of the clean sheet, and I felt like they defended really well as a unit. And Ben Davies was part of that, and I felt like defensively, he did really well, and he was getting up the pitch. He put that ball in for Harry Kane where he really should have done better. Really good save out of Leno. So yeah, I'm happy with Davis's performance yesterday.
Yeah, and I didn't really see him do anything wrong. It's just sometimes you worry when there's a ball going over to the left wing, the left winger or the right winger, I just feel like sometimes he's a little bit ahead of the ball. Sometimes he's like on his back foot, so he doesn't feel like a super strong defender, but he didn't do anything wrong. So for me, it was just a standard good performance. But all together as a unit, I would definitely give them a 7 together.
Emerson Royale up next. 7s all round from us. Finally, we agree on a rating. But look, everyone's coming in for praise for Emerson after the performance yesterday. And I like the little tactical tweaks that Conte did with him yesterday in terms of getting him more into the central areas of the pitch and having Kulusevski more out wide so he can get the balls in the box. And defensively, he was brilliant, especially in that second half. Nothing was getting past him throughout the day. Even had a shot on goal in, I think it was it in the first half? I can't remember if it was in the first or the second half. But the way he was getting into those central areas and really trying to put the ball into Harry Kane, put the ball into Heung-min Son, out wide to Kulusevski, he was so central to the majority of things what we were doing yesterday. So definitely a big step in the right direction for Emerson.
And I actually feel like, I was about to give him an 8, but it's just, you got to be careful because I was going to give him that 8 comparing the performances to him. So now he's had a performance where he should be playing like that.
Yeah.
That's how he should be playing. So, but at the same time, he did, he cleaned up after Romero a couple times.
Yeah.
And when that side looked like they were right through in, he did a slide tackle and
Yeah.
put the ball through. So I think defensively he was like, flawless. And then going forward, he was really good going inside and then stop and blocking the play from being overlapped or from counter attacks. But then again, he didn't like advance play, if you know what I mean, like what you want from a right wing back. So that's the only reason I didn't give him an 8, because he really was important. I would have thought that he was maybe the third best player in our team just for the desire. That's why I really gave him the 7. Is the desire.
He played that kind of like inverted fullback role really yesterday, like Zinchenko pretty much plays for Arsenal, where he would be really solid defensively as that right back, but instead of darting down that line, which he usually does with no quality at all, he was providing that extra man in the midfield and even going on from that and providing that extra man in attack really, where little quality does come from him in those areas, but at least he was causing a nuisance for the Fulham backline.
And I liked it because him going in meant that they can all shift across because your plays down that side, so you shift across. Romero is actually got really good feet, and he's really good at passing the ball down the line. So Romero can kind of go that way. Then people start to you can imagine that's their passing lane that he's going into. So that's kind of shutting down an avenue for them. And then no one's expecting him to do that. I guarantee you, Fulham would not have seen the book that. Look at the playbook and seen him there.
Absolutely.
So it was interesting. But I thought that for me was also an impressive thing from Conte.
Yeah, I completely agree. Next up, let's move into the midfield with Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. 5s all round from us for Pierre. And look, I thought we saw some really good things in there from Pierre, but on the ball is where he really let me down yesterday. I mean, just 5-yard passes, like I was saying for Eric Dyer, broke down so many moves for us yesterday. I remember one in the latter stages of the game that all he had to do was play Kane in. It was the most simple ball, and even that he couldn't get right. I mean, off the ball, he's just the same Pierre as we always know. Industrious, getting about the pitch. His leadership qualities were on show yesterday, but it's just on the ball where he's letting us down at the moment, and it's kind of coming a bit of a consistent theme at the moment.
Yeah, and you can see that that's in his head. He's thinking that, and it's the quality of pass but it's like this is what makes me think that he's tired, because that's where your one-touch passing goes, or he's overthinking it. And when I see him, there's a break about to happen, and he doesn't see the break happening. But he used to be able to see those things happening, but now he doesn't, and he holds the ball, and then he waits for one touch, and he falls. Yeah. And it's like, well, we had the initiative there. Now we've got to slow things down again. So it's the slowing down of things. Stop slowing it down. Yeah. That's why I gave him 5. I think he should be the person who's like, right, let's go. He wasn't doing that.
Do you think that his position in the team is in threat? Or does he offer us enough off the ball and his leadership qualities to keep persisting with him?
I mean, imagine if you're Conte and you're his manager, and he's really the person that gets the messages out. And he doesn't need a piece of paper being thrown under the plate. But he echoes Conte's spirit. So that's why I would like to see him stay. But then you are looking at people like Bissouma who really need the minutes, who need to come on. And when a player like him is failing at the one thing that Bissouma is really good at, it's very tempting to say, maybe let's push for Bissouma or even Sarr. But I think it's important that you get his confidence up, because he's a powerful player in this team.
Yeah. I agree. Let's move on to his partner, Rodrigo Bentancur. 7s all round from us. And look, it wasn't an as strong display as we saw at the Etihad when he ultimately tired in the second half. But I still think this team just looks so much better with Rodri in the middle of the park. His pressing from the front, he's always the first one to go. Nearly pressured the Fulham defence into making a mistake as well, like he did against Man City. Look, his passing wasn't great yesterday, and there were quite a few misplaced passes from Rodri. But what he does give us is industry on the ball, driving that team forward, shithousery as well in the middle of the park. I mean, I love seeing him in a Spurs shirt. I really do. And as much as it wasn't one of his best displays in the Spurs shirt yesterday, he was one of the best players on the park.
Yeah, and it's that thing of like he never doesn't want the ball. You know, and when you're looking at our defence, when the ball gets passed to them, you're like, oh my God, how long before, you know, they just run out of a pass. And then, but they were always like, oh, Rodrigo, you know, it's like, and he just helps them out. Just like, give him the ball. Even he wants it when there's players coming on him. In
those tight spaces, he's so good because he's so nimble on his feet. He can just, you don't know which way he's going to turn, Rodrigo.
They all think he's going to keep going back because that's what Højbjerg does and everyone else does. They go back or they find the backward angle, but he's like, whoop, turns and he goes this way. And then he makes their attackers look kind of slow, but it's just because his peripheral vision is just, he's got eyes in the back of his head. He can see, you know, and if you watch him close before he gets the ball at his feet, his like head's like The Exorcist. He's just like, his like head's going everywhere. But he gets the ball and he's gone, you know. And so the things that were going wrong for him, I felt like that's just a little bit of his touch, waiting for his touch to come back, and be out. But I liked almost everything else I saw.
Yeah.
I don't mind when a player is trying cool things and then they make mistakes. Yeah. The good thing is that they keep trying them, and he kept trying them. That's cool.
But the difference between him and Højbjerg is like, Højbjerg is just failing to make those literal simple 5-yard passes where Bentancur is actually trying amazing things on the ball, and sometimes they're coming off, sometimes they're not, which you can you know, you can allow that if that's happening, but what you can't allow is for someone to keep making these 5-yard passes and then not to come off. Especially
as some of your defenders, sometimes when Højbjerg was getting the ball, he was just playing it straight to a defender, and it's like you can tell they don't want the ball.
Yeah.
You know, and he's like, they're looking at him, you take the initiative, you know? And that's why every time Bentancur came in, they're like, oh, give me the ball. And then he goes, and then the momentum's changed. Exactly.
Let's move on to left wing back Ivan Perisic. 5s all round from us. Another poor display, in my opinion. And I think it was like the opposite display, to be honest, of what we saw at Man City, because defensively, I thought he stood up to the challenge yesterday, and not much was getting down his side, not much was getting past him. But something that you don't really associate with Ivan Perisic. He didn't have much quality going forward yesterday.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's, again, that thing. I wish, you know, Perisic is the type of world-class player when he's at his heights that, you know, something goes wrong in a game. Who cares? You keep going. I feel like the Man City thing did a bit of damage because he was coming into the touchline, look, giving Ben Davies a way out only to put him back in trouble. Like, he didn't want any of it. He wasn't looking for the inside pass, and that what I'd liked from him before is when he was getting in trouble, he would move inside or he would do something down the line, and he wasn't doing any of that. I think he was out of ideas. I think mentally he was seemed a little bit tired, and that's not something you want from a player who's hit the levels that he has in his career.
So experience as well, yeah.
Yeah, so for me that was really underwhelming performance, you know.
Yeah, it's a shame with Perisic because, look, I've said it time and time again, I just don't think that position suits him anymore, and I think he needs to just stick further up the pitch, maybe the Sonny role. Now Dan Juma's come in, I can't see him getting that role anyway.
And it's a shame because there isn't, because we haven't invested in a James Ward-Prowse or someone who's incredible with the ball and with the dead ball. We really need Perisic on the pitch because he supplies so much with his accuracy.
Yeah.
So that's the tough thing.
He did put one good ball into the box that I remember yesterday, but that was literally it.
Yeah.
So, look, it is what it is. We'll move on to Dejan Kulusevski. Brains gives him a 6. I gave him a 7. I thought in the first half, he was actually one of the shining lights for Tottenham. It looked like he had the beating of his man consistently and was providing quality in the final third for us, albeit we didn't have too many chances yesterday in the first half. But I thought in the second half, he kind of tired throughout the game. I'm not sure what was going for him. I think he went a bit missing in that second half, but I thought still he was on probably one of our biggest creative attacking outlets yesterday.
Yeah, and I gave him 6 because of I'm kind of thinking about him, what's his quality, and he can breeze past players without even looking like he's running fast, and in this game, it was like he looked like he was a bit in mud, like running in quicksand. He was just not as fast, and he didn't give up. But it's like, that's the great thing. You know, like that time where Robinson is kind of seeing him out, and he's lost, and the ball hits the corner flag and comes back, and he's still on it. So I liked that about him. I didn't think he did anything wrong. I just didn't think he's got it fully back in his legs. I think he I'd like to see it. This is where, like, if a Danjuma comes in, I'd like to see, just because it's Kulusevski, he should be getting little bits of rest. He can't play all the time, you know, if you're coming back from an injury. So I'd have liked to have seen that. But I still think, yeah, he can do things that other players can't.
Of course.
Some of his crosses were beautiful. You know? So maybe a little bit harsh, but I'm rating it against him rather than the rest of the team, because I do think he was still a very, good player.
Heung-min Son, Brains gives him a 6. I gave him a 5. I think this is the first rating you've gone above me in. But again, Sonny, not the great display, was maybe slightly better than what we have seen in the past. I thought passing was still off and his touch was still off, but you could definitely see him working hard for the team, trying to get out that rut. Obviously, a really nice assist for Harry Kane's goal, where he just polished it like he ever polishes one. But look, Sonny, maybe slightly better, but still not great.
Yeah, no, he wasn't great. And this is one where this is still below his, it's way below what we expect from him. But I did see times where he was trying, and like where he was actually doing the right thing, and he wasn't backed up by people. And I saw him, because it's one of those things where you just watch someone who you're really worried about. If you just watch their performance, there was so much of it where he was doing right, and it's just on the ball. His legs aren't. His confidence isn't there, and his legs
just so hesitant, isn't he, on the ball? Like, what is this?
He's scared to go. But then the cool thing is that when for that goal, he came and he was like, "Give me the ball," and he took it, and he took initiative, and it's like, Tony, that's you. That's
exactly. We need to see that time and time again, because one moment in like a month, pretty much,
it's not enough. It's not enough, and it's just. He needs the rest, and he needs the confidence to come back. But I did like little things of him, and I definitely felt like, all right, okay, but he is being used in a way here where he's having to fall deep. He's a little bit more hand tied than what we think. So maybe there's something that to do about it, and maybe he just doesn't like that. Maybe he doesn't like playing with this restriction of I've got to go back and fall in and help a left wing back because we're weak there,
But he did that under Jose Mourinho pretty well, and he was scoring loads of goals, getting loads of assists. It's true, he was younger then. Do you think the signing of Danjuma maybe can revitalise Son, giving him a bit more competition on that side?
One, it gives him a bit of rest, and we're not stressing out. We're not going to drop levels here. Danjuma's coming in on form. He's been done really well in the Champions League. He's won a big trophy, so he's coming in as actually the more kind of like successful player, really, in terms of trophies. But he's fast, and he's got power and strength, and so it should be the kind of thing where Son sees him play, and you want him to come and play great. We want Danjuma to do well here. And then Son goes, I need to go back to the drawing board. I need to work on these things. I have to see what this guy's doing, and then come back. And when he comes back on, take that initiative. You really got to get goals. As soon as we see that, we'll all fall back in love with Son, and he'll play every week. But until then, it's not looking great.
Yeah. And last but not least, in the playing staff, Harry Kane. Brains gives him a big fat 9. I gave him an 8. And look, I did think he was the hub of the team yesterday, taking shot after shot after shot. You could see he was a complete man on a mission yesterday, trying to break that record. He did equal the record with a stunning finish into the side netting, like we know Harry Kane can do. But literally, he was the literal hub of the whole team, trying to make stuff happen, not only just in that second half, but in that first half as well. And that's the Kane we're being accustomed to seeing week in, week out.
Yeah, and just my 9 is just on the quality of how he took that goal. The space he makes, all that stuff we take for granted that he does, that not many people in the world can do. But to use the defender as the screen block and the goalkeeper, but also just being able to take balls on a turn, difficult balls where are just coming out of the air off awkward angles and stuff, and he just bang, takes it, puts someone in. If anyone in the team was playing on anywhere near the level he was playing last night, we would have been flying.
Yeah. And it's also I love the moments with Harry Kane when he gets the ball, maybe on the half turn, and he's got 2 players on him, and he's just like, all right, see you later, mate. And he's not the fastest player, but up there he is the fastest player, and he can just beat any man.
How he just creates 2 yards of space,
Yeah.
and then when he gets past the player, he's gone.
Yeah.
And the defender could be way faster than him, but when you got momentum and that player's waiting to turn, and he's like pushes it, the way he controls his body to get past people is I think a beauty. Like,
Yeah.
and it's such little things that we don't really like, we take for granted.
Yeah, 100%. And I think when he does leave and we need another number 9 to take that role off him, I think that's when we're going to appreciate him even more than we do now. That's for sure. But let's finish off with Antonio Conte. 7s all round from us. Big support for him in the away end last night. I even gave him a mark for that. And he was, clapping to fans all the time. He came over to the fans after the game to show the appreciation. But the way he managed this game, I think, was absolutely spot on. He found a way around the Emerson Royale attacking problem, bringing into the midfield, which I think is a massive plus for him. The defence looked solid yesterday, so you got to give him props for that. And we got a good 3 points away from home and a clean sheet. So happy days.
Against a team that's scoring goals, that's beating everyone else from outside the top 6, that's like scoring multiple goals against Man City, Man United. So I think for him to like go there in the trouble we've been in, and to get that performance out of them, to get that stability, to get those 2 lines fall, everyone, although they don't want to do it, although sometimes it's hard, he gets players to suffer for him. And I think the best thing about last night is that I think Conte heard the fans, and they know that we support him. It's the club and then we're trying to get them to back him. So I think there's a unity there. And what he said after the game about how he came across so passionate about the fans, and how passionate he is about the team, and like getting that clear across to the guy asking him the questions. I thought that was like, he does want to be here. He does want this club he wants it to work out, And if he gets backed, it will. And so we should know that as fans, we should back him in the stadiums,
Absolutely spot on. But that is your player rating for the 1-0 win against Fulham yesterday. Big up to Brains for coming in and joining me today. We'll see you all very soon. Like, subscribe and comment. And as always, come on you Spurs.